The following is a presentation from PokerStars.com. Previously on the big game, the players came out firing. Jason Mercier got the best of Tony G when he flopped the nuts. Tony turned the tables, not on the felt, but with his mouth.
Can you open the hand?
Why do you want to see my hand?
It's nothing personal, right?
I guess.
Meanwhile, the loose cannon had a tough go, finding this table as hard as advertised.
What a bad bet by me.
The big game starts now.
This is the PokerStars.com Big Game.
Welcome once again to the big game in Las Vegas. Alongside Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose, and tonight, some of the best players in the world continue to go at it with more than $1.1 million on the table in our state-of-the-art poker room.
Phil Hellmuth is sitting in his traditional sixth seat. He's been there every time on the big game, and he's full of wry smiles. Maybe that's because he's up a cool $65,000.
Does that look like the face of a man up over 172 grand? It's Jason Mercier, so we understand.
Ike Haxton has taken a hit to his Staxton. He's down 35,000.
Tony G comes into the night down almost 47K, so look for this action junkie to hit the comeback trail.
Our resident magician Antonio Esfandiari has so far dropped 105K down the trapdoor. Let's see if he can pull off a profit or at the very least a prestige.
And standing by with Amanda Leatherman is the loose cannon, 39-year-old father of three, Russ Harlow. He's been staked 100 large, but is down more than half of it. Can the bakery delivery man rise to the occasion?
All right, Russ, you're under half the starting stack out there. Are you going to do anything differently?
Well, I think I'm just going to have to really put them to some tough decisions because I'm on the short stack. I have that ability. I mean, I've been stuck before.
Right. Are you getting a little nervous?
No, not really. I just have to play good. And I think I've made a couple of mistakes, but I still have some chips left.
All right, more importantly, you have 3 kids watching you right now, I'm sure. Any message for them?
Well, you know, Daddy's having a good time, and thanks for helping me make that video.
All right, good luck, okay?
Thanks.
And one other thing, kids, go to bed. Each cannon is staked 100 grand to play and keeps all winnings above the initial 100,000. And the loose cannon who's won the most money at season's end earns a North American Poker Tour passport worth 50K.
Russ, the donut delivery man, is still chasing the benchmark set by Nadia Magnus. She walked with almost 64,000, and that is a lot of bear claws.
Donuts. Action begins on Antonio, who folds. Tony G. Oot. Ike Haxton, King 8 offsuit, raises to 1,600. Suited connectors for Jason Mercier, on the button, and folds. Ace deuce for Phil Hellmuth. He's out. Ace jack for the cannon in the big blind. Calls.
Ike's made a bit of a loose raise, but he was raising the loose cannon's big blind.
The flop, Queen King 7. Haxton hits top pair.
Check.
Harlow checks.
Russ has ace high, but he's got a gut shot to go with it.
Haxton checks.
Ike's checking for pot control and a little deception.
9 of spades on the turn.
9 helps no one and provides no additional outs.
Check.
Harlow checks.
Jack 10 would be the only hand that got there, so Ike might feel like getting a bet in now.
Fires 2,600.
Russ may not know this, but if Ike had nothing, which is all Russ can beat, he probably would have bet the flop. Be more afraid when Ike Haxton checks the flop back at you.
Fold.
Go Isaac.
That's it.
Isaac, he's our man. If he can't do it, only Jason can. Whee!
Okay.
Haxton collects his chips and gets serenaded by Antonio. And here are the rules of the big game. Each table lasts exactly 150 hands. The action pre-flop is pot limit, then no limit after the flop. Blinds are 2 and 400 with a $100 ante, all of which is paid by the player on the button. Every player begins with at least 100K, but can reload for up to $500,000.
Tony G was going to reload up to 500K. Wouldn't take much. That's how much he bought in for to begin with.
That is a big game record as far as buy-ins go. Action folds around to Phil. King 6, folds. The loose cannon. Got to start kicking it into gear, my friend. And he raises to 1,600 without telling us what he's got.
He's not just keeping us in the dark. He didn't look at his cards. He's been here for 60 hands. All of a sudden, he thinks he can start playing blind.
Antonio repops to 4,700. Pocket pair for Tony G in the big blind. Re-raises to 15-4.
Now I got to look at my hand.
Russ is pulling out all his best home game lines.
King 4. I'm guessing he's going to, do that.
A cold 4-bet from Tony seems pretty strong, especially against the hand Antonio is holding.
Antonio folds, and Tony G picks up the pot.
I think Antonio was trying a bit of a re-steal there from the small blind. It's possible Tony picked up on that.
At one point, Tony was down over 133 grand. Now he's down only a little more than 40.
Only?
Progress, my friend. Phil looking at deuce, queen, suited, and it's out of here. The loose cannon.
Russ seems like he really wants to play.
At least he looked at his cards this time. King 10 for Tony on the button. Raised to 1,600.
16 straight, 1,600.
Ace-9 is known as the gimp hand, but Ike's ahead of Tony's range.
Ike calls. Jason folds.
Heads up.
They call it the gimp hand because of how much worse it is than Ace-10.
The flop. King, queen, ace. Top pair for Ike. Second pair and a gut shot for Tony G.
Both players have flopped pretty good.
Haxton checks. Tony checks. 10 of clubs on the turn as Tony G hits 2 pair.
Ike still got top pair, but this board just got a lot worse for him. All kinds of 2-pair possibilities and a 4-card straight.
Haxton checks. Tony checks.
Even though Tony's got a good hand, it'd be tough for a worse hand to call him.
5 of clubs on the river.
Both of these guys have a hand. Let's see if either one wants to bet and risk getting raised.
Haxton's got chips.
Looks like Ike might think there's some value in a bet.
Fires 3,300. Tony calls and wins.
Wow, we could have got more money in there.
Kings and tens.
Tony couldn't really raise there.
I was right on the flop. We could have got more in if the board wasn't like that.
I don't think Ike's with you on the whole we could have got more in thing. He lost.
Speaking of losing, our loose cannon has now slid below the 50,000 mark. The big game is just heating up. More from Las Vegas coming your way after this. Welcome back to the big game. Our loose cannon this week is Russ Harlow. The father of 3 from Connecticut is racing against Father Time, at least in a poker sense. He's got to turn a profit after 150 hands or he gets nothing.
Let's play some damn poker.
Word.
Huh?
Word.
You and I need to get some damn poker.
No, stop picking on me. Let's take these guys. All right?
Jeez.
Suited 1 gapper for Ike. Raises. Suited connectors for Jason Mercier. Re-raises to 4,800.
Come out.
Phil folds.
Jason's taking advantage of his pre-flop position over Ike.
Action folds back to the original raiser, who's out of here, and Mercier takes it down.
That seems to be a popular story over there.
Raise, re-raise. Raise, re-raise. Kid loves to 3-bet, huh? Loves to 3-bet.
I learned it from you, Antonio.
Yeah, right. Used to be called over the top. That's what we used to call it, you know? Remember those days when nobody ever did it?
OTT.
You would come over the top and people would just fold ace-queen face up, you know? Just wee, you know? Those are the good old days.
That was when Phil used to win, right?
Yeah, back in the day.
Wow.
I love Phil getting the needle from Isaac, you know?
You know, right?
That was kind of pure, you know?
Pure burn.
Phil gets torched by all generations.
It's funny, every interview, everything, they always ask me, oh, what about Phil Hellmuth? I go, you know what? He's actually a pretty good guy, you know? He's just has a lot of issues, you know?
I think that was a compliment.
Oh, wait, that's my answer for Mike Manisol.
Phil raised to 2,000.
Phil, it's just that he's an easy target.
Ike, suited connectors.
Speaking of which.
Phil hired me to do magic at his party like 8 years ago.
Really?
Really?
True story.
Wow.
Ike calls.
Boy,
true.
was I starstruck, you know?
The flop.
Lane Flack was there, Mike Sexton, you know, the whole crew. Here I was.
All the
just
superstars?
All the superstars, you know?
Ike checks top pair.
4,500.
Phil fires 4,500.
Ike's probably not folding top pair to just one bet when there isn't much that would connect with Phil's range out there. Not only does he have top pair, he's got a lot of backdoor draws as well.
Call.
Haxton calls. The turn. The jack of spades.
Check.
Haxton checks again.
Let's see if Phil's going to continue.
He's got chips.
Rechecks is nothing.
And checks.
Phil looked like he was going to bet and then held off. Have to wonder what Ike will make of that.
5 of clubs on the river.
Ike might think he has the best hand, but it's not likely he'd be called by worse on a value bet.
Ike checks.
You might have ace queen. Check.
Check.
Phil checks.
That would mean Phil has no pair. The nuts.
38.
And Haxton wins the pot.
Ace king.
So Ike's pair of eights hold up, but I really liked Phil's continuation bet there, and here's why. The stats tell us that with the exception of Tony G, the players at this table are folding to continuation bets at least 50% of the time or more. Story checks out. Since you're more likely to miss the flop than you are to hit it, somewhere Barry Greenstein is jumping up and down screaming, "I told you so!"
I would pay very good money to see Barry Greenstein jumping up and down doing anything.
Well, he says "I told you so" quite a bit. I don't know about the jumping up and down.
Action begins on Phil Hellmuth. He folds. Queen Trey suited for the cannon. He's out of here.
He's just an interesting kid. You know?
Antonio, pocket pair, raised to
He'd
1,200.
disappear. And he'd drive to town every
Tony
day,
G
check his
folds.
internet, you know.
Ike, big slick.
Aren't you playing?
About 90, sir.
About 90. Pot is 46.
4,600 straight. Raise to 4,600 straight.
And Ike re-raises to 4,600. Mercier folds.
Even if Antonio thinks he's behind, he's got the right implied odds to try to flop a set of deuces.
Antonio calls.
Sometimes a baby set can get you your opponent's entire stack.
The flop, 8-4-7.
Antonio flops good so far. See if Ike continues.
He does. Betting 6,800.
6,800.
I'm not sure one C-bet from Ike is going to be enough to get rid of Antonio. Let's see if Antonio puts Ike on an overpair or just two big cards like he has.
Raise.
Antonio raises to 21-1.
This is a pretty interesting raise. Antonio's hand is only one better than Ike's, so this raise is only getting action if it's beat. Also, this is a tough board to try to bluff out a hand that's better. There's really nothing too scary about it. It is possible that Antonio's just picked up on something on Ike not liking the flop.
All in.
Ike re-raises all in.
This is a huge bluff from Ike. Would be a pretty ridiculous call if Antonio can make it.
Nope. He folds.
Ike Haxton goes all aggro-cadabra on the magician.
Antonio had the right idea, but Ike went OTT and forced the Magic Man to release his hand. More action from the big game after this. Remember to log on to the website to see the stats for this table, watch bonus hands, and see footage deemed too hot for TV. All right, you ever wonder what it's like to sit in the hot seat? It's our new segment we call Couch Cannon, where we put you in the perspective of the loose cannon. Now, Joe, we don't get to see anybody's cards except for the amateurs, so instead of Russ, it's Team Us this hand.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm ready.
Tony is raised to 1,500.
I always donate in this game.
Ike calls. Jason folds. Phil calls.
I can't wait to see what we have.
All right, it's King 10 offsuit.
Well, we're getting good odds to call with most hands. King 10's all right.
Yeah, so we call.
Good luck, boys.
That's cool. I feel good right now.
Rooting for you.
I know.
Jack 7 tray, 3 spades.
Check.
Phil checks. We check.
Check.
Tony checks.
Check.
Ike checks.
4 players.
I like our check. Even if we improve, someone else is likely to improve more.
All right, ace of spades on the turn. That means we've got a flush.
It's a great card for us because now there are also only 2 cards in the deck that beat us, and it's pretty likely someone would have bet one of those already.
6.
Phil makes it 6,000.
I'd say it'd be pretty tough for Phil to bet into 3 people without a spade. But a quick little math here. We're getting 2 to 1, so even if Phil is only going to bet the king, the queen, or the 9 of spades, we'll win 1 out of every 3 times. That gives us the right odds to call.
Well, Russ raises to 15,000. That gets Tony to fold. Ike's out 2.
I don't love this raise. All the worst spades are likely to fold out, and a better one likely won't. It's also not too much to protect against. Maybe a set or 2 pair.
I got to tell you, Joe, I'm a little nervous going heads up against Phil.
I wouldn't be.
Phil calls.
Heads up.
You nervous now?
Maybe a little.
The river, the queen of spades.
Check.
Phil checks.
I'm really not scared now. The only card that beats us is the king of spades, and I don't think Phil's got it. My guess is if he did, he'd bet it and not give us the chance to check behind for a cheap showdown. Right now, we should be thinking value bet.
There's only one hand that can call me anyway, so.
Nope, we checked. All right, let's see what Phil's got. Oh, he had 2 pair. We're going to win.
Wow.
Pretty crazy for Phil to bet and call a raise without a spade.
I can't believe.
Wow.
Wow.
Nice hand.
I would have taken guts if you moved in.
Did you check because you made your straight? Nice hand.
Thanks.
Russ creeping back in the right direction. And by the way, we get a piece of that last win.
Phil, what did you have, mate? What happened? Did you see there was spades there? 4 spades on the board?
No, I was strong live.
Would you have a set?
I love this. This is good. You should have asked to see my hand, Tony. That was good. That was a good one.
That would have been
You
inappropriate.
could've, you know? If it's Phil Hellmuth, by the way, it's not inappropriate. So.
At least you're smiling. You're having fun. See, now the game is settling down. You know, the odds are catching up to you. They're getting the better of you. You're starting to dribble away your chips. There's nothing you can do now, Phil. Just got to hang on the most that you can until the end.
I didn't come here to hang on, Tony.
Pocket pair for Phil. He raises to 2,000.
Phil didn't come here to hang on, but Russ is hoping he came here to put his 3 kids through college.
Russ with 8s.
He hasn't even got any chips if you hit. You can't even make a lot. And what are you hoping to win? Like another 20,000 if you hit? That's a frustration
Raise.
call.
Raise.
Harlow re-raises to 5,000.
5,000.
I think you were frustrated.
How much you have left?
You know how it is? Like you get frustrated, you say, you know what?
55.
I got that straight
I
flush.
just go all in now. I can't make any more
Phil
mistakes
calls.
after that.
Russ getting aggressive after winning a big pot. Pocket 8s aren't all that strong of a hand, especially when you're not likely to love the flop.
Which is queen tray ace.
And if you'd like made a great read and you just had a straight draw, and then you hit on the river, and you still can't beat.
Phil leads out for 5,000.
Those 8s looked good enough to 3-bet when there was no ace and queen out there. Now they can't take any heat whatsoever, even this small bet from Phil.
Probably couldn't stand a raise, but nice hand.
Russ folds the better hand.
You're firing again, Mr. Hellmuth.
Well, nearly halfway through the week, Phil Hellmuth has turned a nice profit. But is Phil starting to lose it because of Tony's needling?
You needed that part. You didn't want to lose that. The wheels might have really come off. That'll be a stabilizer for you on your tricycle. The stabilizer wheels are on. You're unlikely to fall down.
I like you, Tony, but you got to get some new material, man.
The tricycle thing just doesn't get old.
It is pretty good. You got to give him credit. Yeah, you got to give him props for that, right?
Now, there's something new with it. I mean, you know, we're using the same vehicle.
Same vehicle, different metaphor.
Phil raises.
That's why they ask me back every time. I've got new material.
You do. I mean, you're a real talent.
Phil never drops the same name twice.
The cannon is called with just 9 high.
You are a real raw talent.
Ike folds.
Heads up.
Wow, you guys are just having it out.
Phil's got the cannon dominated.
The flop. Ace 8-8 could be real trouble for Russ Harlow.
In the words of Outcast Chris, what's colder than cold?
Ice cold.
That's right, this is an icy cold deck.
Phil fires 3,000.
Russ is in bad shape to win this hand. He really doesn't need to do the Hollywooding here. Still, if he can't get away from this hand, there's a better than 50% chance he'll be on his way home.
That would be back to Connecticut to tuck in his 3 kids.
Raise, make it
Russ
10,000.
raises to 10,000.
Russ is playing it right. This is just unlucky.
Hollywood Hellmuth taking his time.
You raise.
Re-raises to 20,000.
This is a third bet on the flop. Russ might now have to consider that he might be beat. Phil's range is either bluff or the nuts, and Russ has already shown a lot of strength for an amateur. Just don't see how he can get away from this, though.
I'm all in.
There's the all-in,
I call.
and Phil calls.
Raise your cards, please.
You got an 8?
Yeah.
I got a 10 kicker.
Listen.
Looks like a big chance for a chop, but there could be blood.
Okay, should I deal it? Should I do something crazy and deal it a bunch of times?
You should buy insurance.
Well, it's up to him too. I mean, he might only want to do it once.
Oh, that's one time.
One time. Keep it
All right.
manly.
Insurance?
Hang on. You want insurance?
Not yet.
You won't get it when the 9 comes.
Yeah.
I mean, or a jack.
We can even give chop insurance.
Yeah, you
can't
could
we?
give chop insurance. Like,
You could have insurance against just an 8.
Did you see the last episode where the guy ran it with me 4 times?
Oh, I did.
You only want to do it once, though.
Yeah, I'm not that guy.
Or an 8. You could insure an 8 as well. One more 8.
I'm going to let short-term variance take care
You
of you
get
guys.
100,000 to 1 to insure against an 8.
Look at your boy Russ dropping some knowledge.
A 9 would win it for Russ. Jack or higher would chop it. The turn, a 4.
That's the card you want.
Okay, now maybe I'll get some insurance. Now I like it.
We can do the details.
I can only insure against. I'm only insuring against a 9, and I'm paying.
You're only insuring against a 9?
I'm paying 6% to you, Isaac, if you want it.
We're not
Otherwise,
interested.
forget
I'm
it.
not interested.
Okay.
We've discussed this.
This has been arranged.
I
Act
don't
as
want
a
the insurance
conglomerate
on it. All
and
right.
charge 10%.
No, thank you.
Russ needs a 9 to win it. A 4, an ace, or some paint will chop it.
Let's get it over with.
The river. It's a 9.
oh my God.
You could have insured. Look at this. What insurance that would have been. What a bad beat that is.
We would have lost.
We would have lost a fortune.
Yeah.
Hey guys, was that good for the game?
I thought about.
I think that might have been good for the
Was
game.
that good for the game?
What was that? That was like a 15-1 shot coming in.
Got lucky there.
Nice hand.
I got lucky.
Phil Hellmuth runs bad, and his lack of blow-up is really sucking all the fun out of a suck-out.
Ah, you can muck them all. That's great. That's fine.
Sick.
Like Russ, we're coming right back. Welcome back to the big game, and our big winner so far is Jason Mercier, who has found poker to be too easy this week. He's up almost 170K. Russ Harlow's up 17,000 after catching his Miracle 9 on the river against Phil Hellmuth, who now finds himself down almost 8,000.
Once again, he's Joe Stapleton. I'm Chris Rose. And Joe, we're now about halfway through this week, so it's time to check in on some stats. So far, it's like the Jason Mercier show out there. Joe, what is Jason doing right at the table?
Well, of course, this is a small sample size, and the cards have been hitting for Jason where it counts, but he's really setting himself up well to win some big pots. Pre-flop, if you start with my old go-tos, VPIP and pre-flop raising percentages, he would appear to be one of the most tight and passive players at the table. But he's actually controlling the action much more than those numbers let on, because he's been 3-betting everyone's face off. What this means is that he's taking the initiative pre-flop in pots that have been bloated by multiple bets. After the flop, he's doing a lot of checking and calling as his opponents try to go after those oversized pots. So far, he's turned a nice profit by letting the table bet his big hands for him and often building even bigger pots by going after his opponents with check raises. So far, Jason's approach has paid off in spades. Despite winning less than half his hands, he's won $324,000 at Showdown and is a $170,000 winner in the game right now. That means the pots that he is taking down are monsters.
Well, obviously, Jason is winning a lot of these big hands. What else is going on at this table?
Let's take a look at the rest of the table's VPIP. There aren't any surprises here, and as you can see, Tony G and Phil Hellmuth lead the way, engaging in their usual attempts to outdo each other. When it comes to pre-flop aggression, like with VPIP, the numbers are pretty standard and fall within a relatively narrow range. Everyone is active in applying an appropriate amount of aggression. However, if we take a look at the aggression post-flop, we see a much wider range. Tony G and Jason, who have both been very aggressive pre-flop, have the lowest aggression factors after the flop. At the other end of the spectrum is our loose cannon Russ Harlow, who's been very aggressive when he's involved in a pot after the flop.
It seems like our loose cannon is finally comfortable out there, Joe. He's not afraid to get aggressive with these guys. What else have you noticed about Russ's play?
It's clear from the numbers that Russ likes to be involved. He is taking advantage of his time at the table, and he's seeing a lot of flops, even when his opponents are showing strength. He's definitely holding his own against these heavyweights. Let's see if he can continue to chip up and perhaps make a run for the leading loose cannon title.
Action continues back at the table with the loose cannon. Russ Harlow all smiles now, Joe.
Well, he just had a huge suck out to double up against Phil. I'd be smiling too.
He folds, so does Antonio. Tony raises to 1,500.
1,500.
Ike folds. King, queen suited for Jason.
Definitely not a hand you're going to fold to a Tony G raise.
No fold, he calls. Suited connectors for Phil.
Phil's got pretty good odds to see a flop from the big blind.
And so he calls.
3 players.
That was brutal, though. It was. It was a brute, and especially when you passed on the insurance.
9-5-10, middle pair for Phil. Gut shot for Mercier.
No, he wanted to have the stress. He wanted to see if he's lucky.
Jason bets 3,400.
Oh, you got the answer. I think that'll get the insurance customers busier for us.
Phil calls, Tony folds, and continues to bust on Phil.
And it's a conglomerate. It's safer.
Yeah.
It's security.
The turn, deuce of clubs.
Hellmuth still out in front with second pair.
Mercier checks. Phil fires 10 grand.
Jason's got 2 overs and a gut shot, but this is a nearly pot-sized bet.
And so he folds. And Phil wins the pot.
Let's see if that gets Tony off his back.
That's the thing with those insurance. You need a very large bankroll.
Yeah. I had the right idea, though. I was insuring exactly against a 9.
I know.
I can't believe it's there.
I mean,
I just still can't believe it.
I can't believe it.
And I would have insured for more than 5K because there was 100 and some thousand in the pot.
You would have insured for about 7K.
Yeah, 6 or 7,000. Yeah.
Phil's taking this incredibly well, especially the post-suck-out insurance needling.
You weren't dealing that hand where I lost last time, were you?
Don't blame the dealer.
I'm just asking.
With the 4 kings, with the king.
You were at that game, right? You were there.
It's like the guy making 4 kings, the same odds. I worked it out.
Ike raises.
It's like you have to insure someone making quads on you.
Pocket pair for Mercier, who calls. Couple of rags for Hellmuth.
Okay, I'd pot.
And Phil re-raises to 7,400.
That could be the tilt.
Ace-5 for the cannon.
I'm out.
Folds.
If I get out of line, Phil, tell me. I don't want to stick it into you too much.
You should probably just assume it.
But you enjoyed it, right? You must have enjoyed that 9.
It'll be a story I tell at home games the rest of my life, I guess.
And if you can like double up again.
That'll be another thing of beauty.
Making memories here in the big game.
I call.
Ike calls.
Ike and Phil have juiced his pot pretty nicely for Jason's pair, which is also the best hand.
Jason calls.
I didn't think Phil was steaming, but that raise might say otherwise.
I got a feeling someone's gonna get hurt in this pot.
I just don't want Phil to get hurt.
I got a feeling someone's
He
gonna
could take
get hurt.
insurance pre-flop. Like.
This flop, 10-4-9. Mercier still best. Action on Phil.
Phil's caught bottom pair. Let's see if he keeps up his aggression.
He does, firing 14,000. Ike folds.
Will it work on Jason, too? Jason might have the best hand, but it's difficult to improve this hand without runner. It's not a terribly scary board, but Phil did 3-bet pre-flop.
Jason folds.
Show the bluff.
Wow. That flop didn't look good.
3-bet, C-bet. Phil Hellmuth dropping the hammer with junk and taking down the pot. More of the big game right after this.
I mean, I've added stats and math to my game completely because, you know, one of the things I love is the way that the mathematics, the new mathematics in poker, defines some moves that I've made for decades. And I do completely incorporate mathematics and statistics in my game because why wouldn't you learn that stuff? It takes a couple of hours to really understand the math in poker. Why wouldn't I learn it? I think it's more difficult for them, the mathematical players, to learn what I do because that's a God-given talent.
You know, it wasn't until society adopted language that we could even understand Phil Hellmuth. The great one is tied for first in pots won before the flop and total pots won. Also, he's winning over 190,000 without going to showdown.
I can't believe how many good hands you're hitting, though. You're running like a god today.
Actually, Phil's been busting his hump and winning without having to hit a lot of hands.
Phil folds over to the cannon. 10-9 suited, a raise to 1,500.
Fairly loose raise from the amateur.
Esfandiari calls. Tony folds. Haxton's out. So's Mercier.
Heads up.
You and me, amigo.
Round 4?
Round 4.
Something like that?
These two are about a coin flip.
The flop, 6-5 king, 2 spades.
They both miss, and Antonio has the best hand, but Russ has flopped a decent draw.
And he fires 2 grand.
Antonio's got no piece, only ace high.
And he folds. Harlow wins. And he's displaying a little confidence as well.
He does look more relaxed.
Yeah, the snapper, huh? Hit it, you really snap one off.
Snap you off.
Action begins on the loose cannon, our delivery truck driver and former Army reservist. Ace-Jack suited.
Russ is on a bit of a heater.
Raises to 1,500. Antonio folds.
Did you ever start getting doubts, Phil? Like, just maybe I'm not as good as I think?
Raise it up.
Raise.
Phil raising to 5,100.
It's a good question. Right? It's a valid question.
It's right. I'm really curious. Does he really think he's the best in the world?
3,600
Like,
more.
he lies in bed and thinks, you know, maybe I've been wrong, you know?
Cannon calls.
I can't sleep for the whole night. It's frustrating.
The flop,
Well, you can prove today is the best.
7-9 Jack, both get a piece of it. Phil checks.
Prove it
How do
right.
you think you would rank the 6 players at the table?
I think, well, he ranked himself clear.
Harlow checks top pair.
And probably
4 diamonds on the turn.
ranked me last.
11,000.
Bet 11,000.
Then the loose cannon. Then Antonio.
Go.
Harlow calls.
Then Jason. Then you. Second best.
I think he thinks Jason's better than me. Check. I don't think he likes me much.
Jack.
And Harlow wins.
Yeah, he does rank people based on how much he likes them. Unfortunate. Wow. There's 15,000 down the slippery slide. You want to build him up, right? You want.
Every pot I play against him, I make it big now.
Well, we're talking about going to the army. He's been there, so you're learning. He's got to teach you a few tricks.
Well, he's won a couple pots.
It's good, right? It's good. You're happy.
Maybe I'll win one in a minute.
And as we look at this stat for pots won, Joe, everybody's been raking in their share here tonight.
In a six-handed game, a sixth of the total pots won would be 16.66%. All the players seem to be hovering around that average. I think this shows that in poker, it's not the quantity of the pots, but the quality of the juicy ones.
You're steaming.
Why would I be steaming?
You just see the way you're getting tense.
I gotta get my
You're
money
frustrated.
in. I got my money in great again. What do you want?
Tony slowly winding Phil up. If he isn't steaming, he will be soon.
Mercier folds over to Phil, who raises to 2,000.
Could be a steamy raise right there.
Cannon folds, so does Antonio. Tony's out. Ike. Ace-4 suited.
Ike's got the best hand, and he's got Phil's diamonds nutted.
Call.
And he calls.
If we see 3 diamonds, Mount St. Hellmuth just may erupt.
The flop. Deuce, ace, jack. Top pair for Haxton.
Check.
He checks.
Looks like Phil's going to continue.
32.
Fires 3,200.
Phil doesn't even really have a draw, so this is a stone bluff. He's probably not ever going to take Ike off an ace on the flop, though.
Haxton does call.
Phil's going to have to cough up some more cheddar if he wants to win with this piece of cheese.
7 of spades. Haxton checks. Phil checks.
Phil slows down.
Queen of clubs on the river. Haxton checks the best hand.
If Phil's thinking of making a last-ditch bluff here, he must not put Ike on an ace.
$58.
Hellmuth bets 5,800.
This isn't a great bet when everyone thinks you're steaming. It's not even that big of a bet. This bluff may not have a prayer.
Ike calls.
Good call. You got it.
Haxton wins a pot of nearly 23,000. So Ike Haxton made the right call and picked off the bluff by Mr. Hellmuth. But will Tony continue to pick on Phil? Find out after this. Welcome back to the big game in Las Vegas. He's Joe Stapleton. I'm Chris Rose. Hand 87 out of the 150 we will play this week. Phil looking at 10.
And
Jack.
Nice little sweat.
And raising to 2,000. Harlow folds. Antonio's out. Tony G.
Good luck to him, right? If he's got it.
Calls with 6 high.
Looks like Tony's picked a spot to try to run down Phil.
Haxton's out.
You don't raise Tony's button.
You can. There's no
That's your
rule.
peril.
So's Jason.
Oh, I just want to play with it. Stimulating.
9 ace 7. Gut shot for both. Hellmuth checks. Tony G fires 4 grand.
Phil's jack high is the best hand for the moment.
Phil calls.
Decides not to buy Tony's semi-bluff.
The turn, 3 of clubs as Tony G picks up a double gutter. Phil checks on over to Tony. That's 11,000.
I'm committed to the pot, Phil. Are you committed?
Phil's afraid of commitment.
I believe you.
You want to see one card?
I do.
One card. It's special. You can choose one. Hang on.
Which one? Which one, Phil?
Just
I
throw
don't
one.
want to see this one. Fair enough. That was the small one, unfortunately. Yeah. I had a good hand, a legitimate hand, and I was committed to the pot, which I declared.
I should have raised you.
We should have raised. That's right. But you didn't have the heart and commitment.
Oh, don't worry. I'm steamed right now. I want to
I
play
know
pots
you're
against
steamed.
you. Right now, I want you
I
in
know
every
that.
pot I'm in.
But 11,000 was too rich for you.
No, I almost raised it. I
I
thought
know you
about
did.
it.
I know you did. You just didn't have the heart. and
I had
commitment.
nothing. I mean, I couldn't beat a
I had,
pair.
I had the ace 5, so you would have got me off.
I don't think so.
I feel guilty laughing.
But I know why you bet, and I'm going to give you that tell again, so.
It doesn't work if you tell him in advance.
He still can't help himself. I warned people for decades. I'd warn them, and they'd still do it.
Tony limps.
You're very tricky.
Call.
Paxton calls.
See, I'm just a simple person.
Jason's in.
All right, you're right. I'm completely steamed up. I pot.
Raise.
What is that, 22?
Yes.
Phil raises to 2,600.
At least you're capitulating now to the pressure.
Let's go. You can outplay me again.
Oh, there's other people involved.
Tony folds.
He didn't have the hat.
22 more.
That's correct.
Ike's got the same hand.
Unfortunately, there's better hands in play. I had a very disappointing hand.
Ike calls. Jason folds.
And it's a dead heat heading into the flop.
Phil wanted to isolate Tony and gets Ike instead. 7-4-5 on the flop. Gut shot for both.
Which guy has a gut shot?
Both.
Better check. That looks like your range.
Phil checks.
The blow-up's coming. Stand by.
Coming to a theater near you.
There's nothing better than to humiliate Phil. And when he was playing good, I mean, I was kind. I didn't say anything bad. I was playing well done, you know. When
You
the
have a
wheels,
very valid point. You know, now that he's
the wheels fell off.
donkalicious,
Yeah.
you got to pick on him.
Haxton bets 4,600.
All right.
Phil calls after several pump fakes.
I don't think calling with a double gutter is donkalicious.
The turn, the 3 of diamonds.
Check.
Phil checks his pair.
Ike's got the advantage of position.
But doesn't use it. He checks. The river, 7 of spades. Hellmuth bets 1,500 quickly.
And Phil just made the standard 1/10 pot bet.
Ike calls.
Pair of threes. Yep, my kicker's good. Nope, we chop.
Each gets 9,400.
Well played. Was that a value bet?
Yeah.
That's a small value bet, though. But I'm just a simple.
They call that thin value?
Phil and Ike go Dutch on the final hand of the night. After 88 hands, Mercier way out on top. Our loose cannons in great shape, up over 23K.
Tony G stuck, but that hasn't deterred his play or his chatter. And Antonio, he's stuck real good, down over 123,000.
Well, that's it for tonight. While the Tony G and Phil show is starting to heat up, the loose cannon has come back from the dead and is now very much in this game. Find out tomorrow night if he can hold on to his profit and go after the NAPT passport. I'm Amanda Leatherman saying goodbye for now, and remember, if you've got the cash and the guts, there's always a seat open at the big game. Good night, everybody.
For Joe Stapleton, I'm Chris Rose. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Me, I'm somewhat steamed up. But
I
it's all
know,
good.
but you're still being nice to everyone.
Well, there's no sense in like taking it out on anybody. I mean, when you get your money in like this, and that's what you hope for, that's what you dream for.
You have bad luck on this show sometimes.
You think?
The preceding was a presentation from PokerStars.com.